I realized that my wife wasn't going to walk away. She's never been like that. She's awesome. It was my fear. I just thought for sure. I had friends that after that walked away. Some of my best friends walked away because our loss was primarily church people. Who knows why? I mean, everybody goes through their seasons in life, and maybe they thought I had done something illegal or something unethical, which I didn't. At the end of the day, life is a series of events and experiences and decisions, and that's what we're learning in this life. God allows us to experience not love, and He allows us to experience not happiness, and He allows us to experience pain so that we can appreciate what love, happiness, and not being in pain means. Without these things in our life, we wouldn't understand what an eternity of bliss would mean.
I'm Art Blanchford, and this is Life in Transition. Welcome back to the Life in Transition podcast. I am really excited to have with me today a new friend here locally in Middle Tennessee, Jamie Brandenburg, who is family man, 25 years married, a father of 2 adult children, transitioning to empty nester, and is also in the middle of transitioning from full-time industrial real estate broker to industrial real estate investor. Jamie, I've really enjoyed getting to know you in the last 6 months, and most welcome to the Life in Transition podcast.
Thank you very much, Art. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, jumping in, as we always do, Jamie, what would you consider to be one of your most meaningful transitions that you've been through in your life, or most impactful, most important transitions that you've been through in your life?
Oh, wow. There's a lot of them.
This is often the case with my guests. And it's just which one comes to the surface now. It's not anything that has to be the most significant or anything, just whatever comes up for you now.
Yeah, I think probably the one that maybe kicked off you and I wanting to have this conversation was what I went through in 2008, which was I owned a mortgage company, and I was a real estate developer in the middle of a couple of large subdivision developments, and the market fell out, and we were a little over leveraged, and that situation took me down completely to complete financial ruin. And then, took me about, almost 10 years to get back on my feet and start my real estate career back. So that's probably the biggest transition, which was the most impactful, in that it taught me a lot about life and about family and about friendships and which ones are valuable and which ones to not invest in, and truthfully, what is truly important in life. And I would say that's probably the most impactful transition I've gone through. Gone through plenty since then, transitioning my own business, beginning to with and things like that.
With that one, Jamie, which I think is, that was a big financial impact for a lot of people during that time, right, in the Great Recession, especially on the real estate side. So you were very successful real estate developer. Was it residential or was it industrial at that point as well?
At that point, it was residential, and I wouldn't say I was a successful developer quite yet. I was relatively new. We had 2 developments going. One was just a residential development. We were selling the lots. We weren't building the houses. We built a couple, but primarily we were selling the lots. And then the other one was a resort development on a state park and lake, large 2,500 acre lake with a golf course, and that we had bought and several different things. And that was a much larger deal, and had partners on both deals. But in addition to that, we had a mortgage company where we brokered loans and had multiple offices and lots of loan officers. That's really kind of where I had cut my teeth and began my career out of college. We started that almost right out of college. And and had a great run until.
So the mortgage company was your main company, but then you were leveraged up also, as a lot of people did at that time. Everything was looking very good in development and starting to branch off in new ways. But had at the time, which would look like very much from internally or externally, a very successful life, successful business things were going well for you. And then when the bottom fell out in the Great Recession, you lost everything from these two developments that were overextended, or at least overextended for the Great Recession.
Yeah, I mean, the reality, what actually happened was we were with a small savings and loan bank for all of our development loans, and the feds came in one day and locked the doors and kicked them out and gave the notes
Wow.
and all their assets and everything to a large regional bank. And that large regional bank just carte blanche called all the notes, even though they weren't allowed to do that. And so
Holy shit.
Yeah, we fought them until we ran out of money. And I literally sat in a meeting with their attorney, my attorney, and the loan officer that was kind of in control, which she was a kid living in her parents' house still, I believe. And she made the statement to me that, because I said, hey, what you're doing is wrong, and I'm going to fight it. She says, well, you're going to run out of money before we do. I'm like, well, that's a pretty cool thing to say. And so they did. It was true. They ended up winning, and that triggered a cascade of foreclosures on other properties we owned, and eventually it took our home. We lost our home. We lost our vehicles. We, stuff. We lost stuff. And
right.
I think I shared with you that during that time, I was going through a lot of shame and didn't want anybody to know, obviously.
Sure.
I had kind of created a young man's identity on being wealthy and successful, and I was proud of that.
Sure.
And I was no longer wealthy or successful. In fact, I was going to the church pantry to get soap.
Wow.
But,
how old were your kids at this time?
They were little. They were,
okay.
Yeah, let's see that. My daughter would have been 5 and my son was 2.
So okay. And you were the main or only breadwinner in the house as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my wife didn't know what was going on. I wasn't sharing things with her. And so, but I was
trying to protect her. Was that the conversation that you were having with yourself? Yeah. Was like, this is protecting her, or was it just not wanting to be, also not to be ashamed of the pending failure?
It was more about shame.
Okay.
And I had a lot of friends that were dealing with the same stuff, and unfortunately their spouses weren't sticking by them. And so I just assumed that's what would happen.
So to me. A lot of fear there as well.
Yeah. And then I was cold. I was indifferent with her. I didn't treat her very well. So it got so bad that I had decided, October 8th is my daughter's birthday. On October 10th of 2008, I had decided it was time to end it. And so I picked out a bridge embankment. I had disabled the airbags on my truck. I told my wife I had a meeting that morning and I was getting ready to leave. And I had intentions of taking my life. Don't know if I would have, but that was my goal. And it was logical in a sense because I had life insurance. And,
right. So you could provide from your family via life insurance beyond the grave.
That was my logical decision.
Right. Your flawed logic thinking.
But at the time, that's the way I looked at it. And so as I was getting ready to leave, my wife, we were heavily involved in our church and things like that. And I would say I was a believer, and I'd grown up in a Christian home, wonderful parents, all that.
Right.
But, whether or not I was an actual Christian, I'm not sure. I wasn't very Christ-like.
Right.
So Lauren, my wife, had been doing a study by Beth Moore, and she had read something that morning that she felt like God told her, you need to share this with Jamie. So as I was getting ready to leave, I had already gotten out of the shower, put my clothes on like I was going to a meeting. She stopped me as I was walking out of the bedroom to head for the front door. And she said, hey, have you got just a minute? I just want to read this to you. I feel like God's telling me to say this to you. And I'm like, whatever, just read it. And she reads the verse in Matthew, I believe it is, where Jesus says, why do you fear? Why do you worry? If you, being evil, know to give your children a piece of fish instead of a serpent and a piece of bread instead of a stone, how much more does your Father who is good know how to take care of you? And it was the first time that I can recall in my life where the the word literally cut like a sword into my heart. My legs came out from under me. I collapsed to the ground. I started I lost it, started weeping.
Wow.
My wife fell on top of me, and she started saying, I forgive you. I forgive you. I don't care who she is. I forgive you. She thinks I'm having an affair.
Right.
And it took me about 5 minutes before I could talk.
Mm.
And when I finally did, I said, I'm not having an affair. And she says, well, what is wrong? You've been so distant, so cold. And I said, we're going to lose everything. She said, what do you mean we're going to lose it? I mean, we lived in a pretty significant home for where we were
Right.
at. Drove nice cars, had vacation home, all the things. And she says, what do you mean we're going to lose everything? And I said, my business is failing. The bank's coming after me. We're going to lose everything. They're going to take everything. And she says, do you mean we're going to lose our house? I said, yes. And she started naming assets, our cars, our boat, our vacation home, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yes, yes, yes. And she just pauses for a minute. If you've ever met my wife, this will make sense to you because she's a freaking angel. She says, Jamie, I don't care. I never wanted any of that. All I ever wanted was you. She said, we can live in your parents' basement. I don't care.
Wow.
And of course, that meant something to me. So I told her I needed to cancel my appointment. I decided to cancel my appointment, but what I really did was turn my airbags back on. And
but that shift in that moment, you saw, hey, I this life is worth continuing in. God's speaking to me directly through my wife that loves me, even if I'm a failure in my own eyes, even if we lose all the material stuff, it's still not. It's still okay. Maybe not okay is too strong, but
yeah. And I've told people as I've recounted this story, I've told this plenty of times. Everything I was afraid of happening, everything happened, all of it. Lost my home, had my truck repossessed in the middle of the night.
Wow.
Every single thing, and none of it mattered. It just didn't matter because I discovered that life was about peace, relationships, and remembering who we are. And I didn't live in peace for about 4 years. It took me some time. I was depressed and suicidal, and but I got help, and I found a mentor at that time. His name's Ford Taylor. We had a very strong relationship for many, many years. We're still great friends. But Ford really helped me. My father, who's gone now, he really helped me. Just kind of, and my dad, unfortunately, was involved in a couple of my deals. And so he went through something very similar, there was never, to this day, with everything we went through, the loss, the financial loss, the shame, we lost friends. We got kind of ostracized in our church and all this stuff, which created a lot of church wounds for many years that I've gotten over. For a long time. I didn't. But to this day, my mom and dad never said anything ugly to me about it because really I was leading the charge on it. I kind of walked them into it. My wife never, ever one time said anything negative or ugly. In fact,
so she is an angel.
She's an angel. She's written a number of books since then. She's written 11 books, and
holy cow!
Yeah, and one of them is called "The Death of Mungo Blackwell," and it's a funny book, but it tells our story through the lens of a totally different group of people and a made up world and all this stuff. But it tells our story. There's a main character in the story named Charlie Price, and that was me. And and so if anybody ever wants to read our story, it's The Death of Mungo Blackwell. But lots of
and the author. What's your wife's name so people can find it?
Sir,
what's your wife's name if people want to find The Death of Mungo Blackwell?
Lauren H. Brandenburg. Lauren H. Brandenburg. It's on Amazon. She's won some awards. I'm proud of her. But anyway, we went through a lot of awful stuff and hilarious stuff. I could tell you story after story of just comedy of errors, and me trying to hit grand slams just to try to get us back on top, and swinging and missing pretty much every time. So, it's life. And so now,
Did you at that, before we go to the now, which I want to get to, Jamie, but did you at that moment when you collapsed onto the floor and your wife collapsed on top of you, did you have a sense already then that the things that you thought were so important that you were losing weren't? Or when did you have that realization that maybe even if I'm not Superman, I'll put that label on it. I put that label on myself, right? Like even if I'm not Superman, I still have value. When did you come to that realization, or that life still has value and I could still be loved even if I'm not Superman, even if I fail at business?
Yeah, at that moment, no. It took me some time. It took me a lot of help, mentorship. Um, it took Jesus Christ just coming in and changing my mindset, my life. Took God the Father, showing me what a father was. Even though I had, my dad was amazing. I had a great dad. I miss him every day. But Father, God showed me what a heavenly Father was, and shared with me what my value was. And so that, I used to make this phrase. I would say, the assault does not affect the ability. And for many years, I kept saying that over and over to myself. The assault does not affect the ability. I mean, you've built this once before, you can build it again. But for about, I don't know, from 2008 till 2018, I was too scared. I was too tired, too scared. I didn't want to get back in the game. It took me 4 years to go through bankruptcy because I had a number of businesses and they had to all get unrolled. And it was painful. Down to, I mean, we literally, every single asset we have is gone. I mean, we had to give it away or sell it.
Did you end up living with your parents, or what did you do with that time with your two kids and your wife at that point?
We did not. So we stayed in our house for about 4 years. I became a master of the produce the note strategy, which was something people were doing back then. And I was on the cusp of actually getting my mortgage canceled. And my wife came to me one day and she said, Jamie, can we just move on? This is too hard. I've been doing this for a long time and I keep waiting for somebody to show up at the door. She said, I just can't do it anymore. And I said, okay. So we gave our house away at that point to the bank, which, give it away, that's not the fair way to say it. We were 4 years behind on our mortgage.
Right.
So, we did it as long as we could. But then, interestingly enough, we walked into a land contract on another property, somebody that knew the situation we were in, but also knew who I was and had faith that we would be able to make our payment. And we did. We lived there for a while, and then we decided not to go forward with that land contract, and we decided to move to Nashville. So we were in Waynesville, Ohio at that time, and then we decided that it was time to go to Nashville. And there's a crazy story on how God got us here. But so then we moved to Nashville in 2012.
Can you give us the 2-minute version of that? I'm really curious. Whenever God's leading people, especially in ways that are crazy or don't make sense, it's very interesting.
Sure. So at that time I was working with, I mentioned Ford Taylor earlier, with his organization called Transformational Leadership. I was one of his speakers, and I had, because I had been suicidal and had been a successful guy, it gave me the ability to mentor, counsel is not the right word, but I don't know what it's called, talk to a lot of successful guys that were about to jump out a window. Hundreds and hundreds of guys that I spent time with that were suicidal, even though they were still successful. They weren't.
Right. Oh, wow.
They were afraid to. Because once you get to the place where you've got a lot of money, your new fear is losing it. And so it's like, it doesn't solve squat. It just, I used to have a friend that was super wealthy, and he said, money isn't everything. It just knocks the edge off of poverty. And I get that. So anyway, I had gone camping with some friends, and when we came back, I had what I thought was a rash in my armpit that ended up being a case of shingles that went from spine to sternum on my right side. And it covered my entire torso.
Oh, wow.
And it was excruciatingly painful. And so I had gone to the doctor, and he told me that in his 20 years of being a doctor, he had never seen a case of shingles like this. It's the worst thing he's ever seen.
Makes you feel good.
Yeah, it was like being on fire. It was miserable. I never could imagine it. So a week into having the shingles, he had given me some, I think it was codeine or something, some sort of pain medication. And we don't take medication typically. And I took it for one day, and it did null the pain, but it dulled my brain also. And
it made you loopy as well. Yeah.
Didn't like it, said I'd rather deal with the pain. So a bunch of people pray over me, and we're supposed to be going to Nashville to do some consulting with Sophia's Heart, which was Danny Gokey's nonprofit after he had kind of made it pretty far on American Idol. And Danny and I were friends and have been friends since then. And so we were going to speak at this and do a 3-day session. But the shingles were just killing me.
Right.
And so my wife had decided that she would go with me and drive, and she would be there if I needed help. And we were going to live with my parents. So anyway, the night before we were supposed to leave, I got a insane fever, like 106 degrees.
Wow. And you stayed conscious?
No, I couldn't stay conscious. And
yeah.
But it happened at like 11 o'clock at night, and my wife was already in bed asleep, and I'm laying there, and I am just on fire hot. And
that fires up the shingles even more as well, right? I mean,
everything fires up the shingles. You can breathe on them, and it fires. So in the room over our garage, we have a fire detector or a fire alarm, and it starts going off. So it goes off, and Lauren jumps up and runs in there, and there's no fire. There's no smoke, nothing. So he waves a broom at it or something, and it turns off.
And it wasn't chirping because of low battery or something. This was full on.
No, it was going off.
Alarm.
It was an alarm.
Okay.
But it was only in that room. It wasn't connected to
which is weird because they're all connected. So they should ring the whole house. Yeah.
Super weird. So she comes back to bed, and then lays down and goes to sleep. And about 5 minutes later, it goes off again. So she gets up, she runs in there, does the same thing, comes back to bed, lays down again. Third time, about 5 minutes later, does it again. We've always believed that when things happen in threes, God's talking.
That's right.
She comes back to bed, and she puts her hand on my head, and it hurts her hand.
Holy cow.
She was like, oh my God. And she couldn't wake me up. And so she knew instantly I was in trouble. So she runs downstairs, grabs a bucket of ice, and she just starts putting ice on me, just trying to cool me down. And I finally get cooled down, my fever breaks, and I wake up the next morning, and the shingles are completely dried up and gone. They're just bumps.
Oh, wow.
They're dried up. My doctor had told me I was going to have them for a minimum of 6 months. And they were complete. And when I say completely dried up, I mean they were flaking off my body.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it wasn't even like scabs. It was just healed and fallen off.
I mean, there were scabs, like a dead bump, but
right.
So we believe God heated my body up to the point of this is as hot as it can get to kill the virus.
Right.
And that was 13 years ago. I've never had shingles again. People get shingles and they get them all the time. I've never had them again. I think God literally killed the chickenpox virus in my body. And
with that heat.
And it was his way of making sure we went to Nashville. So we go to Nashville, we do the event, and on our way back, we just say, hey, what if we move to Nashville? And Lauren says, why not? Let's start over. And so we did. We decided, we literally, our bankruptcy discharged November, I think 30th of 2012, and we literally on December 1st moved to Nashville. It was something like that timing, maybe not, but something like that. And so we moved to Nashville at that time. Since I've moved to Franklin, and that's kind of how we got here.
This episode of the Life and Transition Podcast is brought to you by Midlife Transition Mastery. If you have reached midlife and you are successful, you have checked all the boxes, you've done everything you thought you should do, and especially pleasing everybody else, doing what you think everyone else needs you to do. But you still feel like something's missing. Like you're coming up empty, feeling alone, feeling misguided or lost. Midlife Transition Mastery Explorer community is for you. Here we will build authentic community. We will learn about the 8 steps to mastering midlife transition. And we will learn and execute living life with no regrets in our second half. Please check out the community on lifeintransition.online/MLTM, Midlife Transition Mastery. And I look forward to seeing you around the fire in this community. So if I go back to the beginning of the story, you talked about, you made the decision when you were laying there on the floor to not try to end your life. What changed in you where you decided not to end it?
I realized that my wife wasn't going to walk away. She's never been like that. She's awesome.
But that was still your fear.
Yeah, it was my fear. I just thought for sure. I had friends that after that walked away. Some of my best friends walked away because our loss was...
So people that you thought were your best friends did leave you after you burned down your businesses.
Yeah, primarily church people.
Which is confounding, quite frankly.
Yeah, I had people that didn't do that didn't go to church. And then I had the people in the church that did do that. And who knows why? I mean, everybody goes through those things in life. And, maybe they thought I had done something illegal or something unethical, which I didn't.
Right.
I don't know. We've since for the most part, every single one of those people have come back and we've reconciled and it's all good. But yeah, I mean, I think in that moment, just my wife assuring me that I'm enough. She doesn't look at me as money. She doesn't look at me as big name, success, any of those things. She just looks at me as the man who loves her. And that's all she ever wanted was a man who loved her. And while I was cold, I wasn't cruel. I was never mean to her. I was hurting. And so I was distant.
Yeah.
And I was scared. I mean, the reality was I was scared to death. And I didn't want to be broke. I didn't want to not be able to provide for my kids. And
for sure.
Even through all that, we started picking. That's what I started doing after that was I became a picker. And in addition to working for Ford at Transformational Leadership, and we also started a nonprofit feeding people. We had 4 and 5 meals a week, and we would feed 100, 200 people each time. And it was awesome because a friend of mine suggested.
Was that through your church or through just something you were doing on your own? Or
we started a nonprofit called 180 Ministries. And it was a good friend of mine said, hey, in your time of perceived need, which was, I thought, an interesting way to put it, why don't you go serve people that are actually in need? And the truth is we ate dinner there too. It was a blessing to be able to eat dinner there and not have to worry about how to pay for it. Because the restaurants in town and places would donate food. And so it was a great period of life. We did it for like 4 years. It was awesome. And then we moved to Nashville. But we became pickers, and that became a whole new adventure and a passion. And I don't need to do it now, but I still do it because I freaking love it.
Awesome.
People crack up at me because I'll post a $200 watch on Facebook and they're like, where did you get? I like to flip watches and, but I just enjoy it. It's kind of like a hobby.
Right.
Little things like that we had to learn how to do just to provide bread. And we always took a trip every year, and we still got to go to, amusement parks, and we still got to go out to eat. We just didn't go to the fancy places to eat.
Right. Which quite frankly, your kids at that age don't probably notice even. They want to be with you and with mom and with each other, right?
They didn't notice. Our Saturday mornings turned into this. We would take a $20 bill, which was a sacrifice. We used to have to save up to get a pizza, and I miss those days in some points, but I'm not asking for them back, God. Don't miss them. So on our Saturday mornings, I would take a $20 bill. I would go get $4 or $5 bills out of it. And my daughter, my son, myself, and my wife would each get $5. And we would go to the flea market for 4 hours. And everybody would search, and whoever got the best thing for $5 won. And my kids loved it. And it was, you could always kind of guess who was going to get what because they always kind of got the same thing. But it was fun. I mean, we learned how to live like that and learned how to just enjoy each other. And when we moved to Nashville, I just did consulting for like 6 years and 2-3 days a week. So, or a month, I mean, and just made enough to survive. But we experienced everything here. We went everywhere. We just did everything. And then in 2017, a good friend of mine who's a home builder at that time, he and I were going fishing on Thanksgiving morning, going fly fishing out at Betty's Island. And he pulls up in his Porsche to pick me up in my little house. And I get in his Porsche. At the time, I was about 100 pounds heavier than I am now. So it looked like I probably needed a shoehorn to get in that Porsche. But we get in the Porsche and we go fishing. And on the way home, he goes, "Hey, how are things going for you financially?" I'm like, "Yeah, mule at the mill basket. I'm barely making it." And he goes, "Jamie, when are you going to get over your pride and get your real estate license?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you have a brilliant real estate mind. You know you do. When are you going to get over your pride and get your real estate license?" And I said, "Well, I can't stand realtors," because I was a mortgage broker. So they were, we were
right. They're the bad guys. And
he said, "I bet your kids wouldn't mind it if you could have a little bit more money, maybe go buy a house, so maybe get over your pride and do this." So I went home that day and I bought the courses and I started taking the courses. And by that was in November. So by December 31st, I was licensed, and I started in 2018 on the first day of January.
And that was already commercial real estate at that point?
No,
or were you
I
starting
did residential
in residential
for a couple of years. And interestingly enough, 2019, me and some friends had bought a warehouse in Nashville that was not on the market. We door knocked, we bought it, and it was a big deal to do that. And then in 2020, you may have heard, our real estate market exploded, and we were able to sell that at a pretty significant margin. And it just kind of launched a career and an interest in industrial real estate. And I kind of haven't looked back. I did residential for a couple of years and then switched over to commercial, and that's what we do now. And so we started investing back in 2020 as well in additional buildings, and have been doing that for a while, and still brokering too. And we'll always do brokerage, but I prefer the investment side. It's
leaning more into that.
Yeah.
So when you look back over that arc of all of those things and so many transitions during that time, what did you learn? What's a big takeaway that you have?
Yeah. Again, I think the big thing I learned was life is about peace, relationships, and remembering who we are. And
I love that.
Yeah. And so peace comes in different ways. For me, it was financial peace. I needed to feel secure. And even today, I still, worry about every dollar I spend. It's just, but it's from that lesson, which I think is good because I'm not frivolous.
Right.
So that was a big one. Peace, relationships.
How do you measure your peace now, Jamie, before we go into the other two? And by the way, I love all three of those. I mean, I 100% agree. How do you measure your peace, and how are you doing compared to before?
I would measure my peace typically based on how easy it is to get angry. I've got a temper.
Great. Yeah.
And
yeah.
That was passed down, through my family. And
honestly, as we say.
But most men would say that they've got a temper and blah, blah, blah. But if I can be calm and be at ease, then that's a lot of times how I can measure my peace. I think some of that also has to do with contentment. We are content with where we live. We're content with what we drive. We don't,
right.
And living in Williamson County, it's a constant flex. Everybody's constantly showing off what they got.
Yeah.
And
if you don't have a Pagani, you're not keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Yes, I don't even know what that is.
It's a $3 million handmade Italian car that I've seen a few of around here.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I don't care about cars, so I guess that explains it. I've got a Jeep Scrambler, and that's really cool.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I got a 2003 Miata and a Ford pickup.
I think that I would measure peace with just how peaceful I'm acting in the moment. Also, you're only as happy as your saddest child. So being a good father and being there for the kids when they need something, that's a big peace place for us. Our daughter has launched into college. She's crushing it. Our son's about to go to college. We've got about a month before we're empty nesters. And, he's 18-year-old boy. He's got a lot of things he's wondering about and nervous about and things. And so we're there for him and love him. He's wonderful. But I don't know if that answers the question. I think.
I think that's great about the peace and how to, how easily do you get triggered? If you're not getting triggered very easily, if you're able to stay calm, if you're able to keep your centeredness, your connection to God in the tricky times, then you're more at peace. And then you talked about relationships and remembering who you are. So say a little bit about those two.
Yeah, relationships is fairly easy, but hey, you start with your spouse.
Yeah.
And I've made a joke for many years, and I'm going to say it out here, and somebody's going to steal my idea. But I've made a joke for many years, and I'm going to write a book, and it's going to say how to have the perfect marriage. And it's going to be 100 pages long, and the first 49 pages is going to say, see page 50. And page 50 is going to say, quit being so damn selfish. And then page 51 through 100 is going to say, refer back to page 50. And I'm going to write a Christian version of it, and I'm going to remove the word damn. But for me, it really starts with my wife of not being selfish, of treating her like the queen and the princess that she is, and doting on her, opening her door, telling her she's pretty because she is, and telling her I love her and all those things. I think that's really, really important. And I just think peace or relationships start with your marriage. And then it trickles down from there, my wife and I have some very close friends that we spend time with, a series of couples that we just absolutely love. One of the rules that we have is we don't talk negatively about each other to anybody.
Right.
And so, and if anybody starts doing that with us, we just say, hey, we're not interested. Like, now, if I've got a buddy that's having trouble and he needs to talk to me, that's different. But in a group setting,
it's like a counseling session where he needs to vent some stuff or whatever. Yes. Yeah.
But in a group setting, it's not appropriate. And
Absolutely.
I'm never going to tell you ugly things about my wife. Well, I couldn't because there's really nothing ugly about her. But if there were, I'm not going to tell you those things because that's going to create an impression in your mind of my wife as a horrible person. And you're not going to see past that because your relationship is with me. And so I think that it starts there and then it trickles down to everybody else, how you treat people. Try to be honest and fair up to a point. But then you also don't let people walk on you and you don't let people do things that are dishonest. And then when you do, you just when they do, you just have to take a stand and just say, nope.
Yeah. And set boundaries. Right. Yeah.
And that's hard. Especially when you have to do that with somebody you care about. And I've had to do that and it's hard. But
how have your relationships changed since this transition? How have your relationships as a whole changed, Jamie?
Well, I think probably most men, when they get together, the first question is what? What do you do for a living?
Yeah. What do you do? Yeah. And how successful are you? What's your, if you know them well, what's your quarter look like? What are you working on right now?
Yeah. That's not something that I tend to lead with. We get there. Mm-hmm. You're curious about a person's life, want to know what they do. There's nothing wrong with that. But but we're not going to do a financial dick measuring contest every time we're together. And I think that's probably one of the areas that's changed is because I'm more interested in who the human is than what the human does. And I've been picky about the folks that are in what I call my inner circle, my best friends.
Yes.
You are the 5 people you spend the most time with. So my 5 best guy friends that I spend the most time with, I'm with them because I respect them. I look up to them. I want to be them in many ways. And, and I think that's important that you pick those people wisely. It's not, I'm not picking who's the most popular or the most good looking or the richest or anything like that. I'm picking who I think is the most valuable human to be in my life. And I could easily name those 5 guys. I'm not going to. But I could, and I could tell you why I choose each one of those. And they thankfully chose me back. And I think that's an important thing. I also think it's important for me to care about their wife. In a healthy platonic way.
And absolutely.
But I want to like their wife, because if I don't, then I'm not going to want to be around them. And so
it's hard to have a couple friendship that way. Otherwise, if both of you don't like both of the other ones. Right. So. How has your relationship with yourself changed?
Well, I'm probably not so hard on myself. I laugh at myself because a lot of times I'm an idiot and I make stupid decisions and I do stupid things.
As we all do.
Say stupid things, I really have tried to learn the principle of don't respond immediately when you're mad. Not super good at it. But I've learned to laugh at myself. I've learned to be introspective and say, why did you do that? Like, let's think about this. You reacted this way. Let's step outside of Jamie and step inside of Son of God and see, why did you act that way? Why did you respond that way? What are you thinking about that other person? One of the principles that Ford Taylor taught me that I have never stopped saying is there's always one more thing about a person's life that you know nothing about. And it's so huge. Like, somebody's upset, they're hollering at you, you don't know why, and you take it personally. Well, the reality is that maybe they got in a fight with their spouse that morning, or maybe their dog died, or maybe their kids just got hurt, or there's probably a million reasons why that's the case. And so that's a big thing for me, is there's always one more thing about a person's life that you know nothing about. And then
absolutely,
I also believe that 99% of the truth is a lie. And so, to the best of my ability, and I'm not perfect at it, I make mistakes all the time, but I try to be 100% truthful. And
I just got what you're saying. 99%. So in other words, withholding 1% still makes it a lie.
Yeah, because you always hold the 1%. You always withhold the 1% that makes you look right, even though you know you're right.
Yeah, or exaggerate a little bit. That's what I do a lot. Is exaggerate a little bit. It's like make it look a little bit better, a little bit.
I mean, and that's a lie when you do that. And so,
absolutely.
And I don't. If somebody's upset with me over something that I don't think I did, I don't say I'm sorry for it, because that would be a lie. And I'll talk to them about it and say, hey, show me what you're thinking here, and let's talk through it. And so, life's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And
awesome. This episode of the Life in Transition podcast is brought to you by Transition Mastery Coaching. If you have made it to midlife and you're successful and you are going through transitions in your life, in your business, in your career, or in your organization, and you are looking to master those transitions, to make the most of them, to accelerate into the next phase of your organization or your life. If you're facing, challenges in your business, challenges in your relationship, challenges in your health, and you really want to transition those quickly, I'm here to guide you for that. And I look forward to working with you. And you can sign up for either Pinnacle Transition Coaching or Summit. Please go to lifeintransition.online/MLTM and scroll to see the Summit and Pinnacle Coaching, or reach out to me directly on my email, art@artblanchford.com. And I look forward to connecting with you and helping you to accelerate your transitions to achieve what it is that you want to achieve in the second half in your organization and in your life so you can live your whole life with no regrets.
Yeah.
What would you go back, like if looking back now, so it's been whatever that's been, it's about 15 years, 13 years since that, day when things were burning down for you.
Yeah.
Looking back now, what would you tell your younger self? Like if you could go back, Jamie 2025 to Jamie 2010 or so, what would you tell yourself?
Everything's going to be okay.
Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. Everything you're afraid of happening is going to happen, and everything's going to be okay.
And it's still going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, look, we get through things in life. You could be a billionaire and your wife can get cancer, and do you really care about your money at that point? Or you could get cancer. We're all going to have things that happen to us. Mine just happened to be financial. But I've got other people that have gone through much worse things that would easily swap places and have to go through that instead of what they went through. And at the end of the day, life is a series of events and experiences and decisions. And, that's what we're learning in this life. God allows us, in my opinion, God allows us to experience not love, and he allows us to experience not happiness, and he allows us to experience pain so that we can appreciate what love, happiness, and not being in pain means.
Right.
Without these things in our life, we wouldn't understand what an eternity of bliss would mean. If we didn't know. And so it's a mercy from God that he lets us experience these things. Now, I'm not looking forward to them, and I don't want them. But it's a mercy. I mean, it's something for our future. And if we believe in the afterlife and we believe in eternal life, then we're investing in it right now, and how much we can appreciate it. So I have that view of it. I didn't. When it was all happening to me, I thought God had abandoned me, and like when we first moved to Nashville, we weren't here 6 months, and my daughter got a brain tumor. And the range of emotions, I was 4 or 5 hours away when I found out, and I had to drive home while she's being rushed into emergency surgery. And I called God every name in the book. And also praised him. I went through this cornucopia of emotions, and I learned from that experience, which we hadn't even talked about, but from that experience, I learned that I can't offend God.
That's a powerful lesson to learn, though, Jamie.
Yeah, he's just God. I mean, he looks at me.
A lot of people don't realize that, right?
Well, so that's created those emotions.
Yeah, so that's right.
How can I offend him with my emotions that he created?
He can handle them.
He's like, son, just get it out. Like, how do you deal with upset people? You let them scream. Like, that's
Express
what you do.
Express it.
Yeah. You got to get it out. Yeah. And so the whole time, even when I'm calling him an MFer and all these awful things that I'm saying to God, which, was horrible, but he knew that wasn't how I felt. I was just, my emotions were going crazy. I was scared for my little girl. And, and you know what he did? He healed her. But he doesn't do that for everybody. And so, I mean, life is just a series of events, and we can deal with them as they come. And so since all this has happened, negative things have happened, positive things have happened. And Lauren and I both just try to go with the flow and not get too excited either way. It doesn't always work.
Is that what you would mean when you said remembering who you are?
Yes.
Because that was the third point you talked about, is remembering who you are.
Remembering who you are. So absolutely, that's multifaceted. I grew up in a lower middle class home. My dad worked his tail off to provide. My mom was always present with us and loved on us, and so I learned a lot of things through that childhood. But it's a great childhood. I had no idea we didn't have money. But I have to remember where I came from, who I am. Am I still with you, Art?
Yeah, we lost you for a second there. You said you learned a lot of things. Maybe pick it up there, Jamie.
Yeah, so I learned a lot of things through that childhood. And so remembering who I am is a function of regardless of how much money I do or don't have, I'm just Jamie. And regardless of how many friends I do or don't have, or how much stuff I do or don't have, I mean, I'm just Jamie. And so, and then more so than that, I'm a child of God, and I'm going to screw up consistently because that's what we do. But then I got to remember, okay, this is who you are. You already have pre-forgiveness. So forgive yourself. And ask God, because we're told to, but he's going to forgive us the second we ask. So I have pre-forgiveness. I just have to remember to ask for it. And then remembering who I am to the people that I love. And that's my family, my friends, and just remembering that they matter to me. And so, it happens in work all the time. When somebody needs you, something blows up at work. And so
you have to make that decision.
Or when I go on vacation, I get 15 new referrals. It never fails.
Right.
So, but I have to remember that I'm a father, a husband, and a friend before I am a real estate broker, before I'm a real estate investor. And those things are more important because this was something else when I was going through my financial loss. My pastor at the time, who we lovingly called Preach, we're sitting in his office and I'm sharing with him what I'm going through. He said, Jamie, been doing this for a long time, sat beside lots of beds when people are passing from this life to the next. He said, I've never heard anybody say, I wish I would have made more money. I wish I would have done more deals. He said, I never heard anybody say that. He said, what I always hear consistently is, I wish I would have told my wife I loved her more. I wish I would have spent more time with my kids. I wish I would have been more present with my parents. I wish, all these relationship failures or perceived failures or ways that they wish they would have been a better relationship with somebody else. And that's been a gift to me because I've thought about that a lot. And so not perfect, I fail all the time, but what I really attempt to do in that section of remember who you are is remember relationally who I am to the people that are around me. That's hard now. We've got these stupid boxes we carry around with a screen. But
that's really important. It's really important. I mean, I just got back from, spending 5 days with my middle son. We drove from New Mexico to Colorado to a conference together. And then we drove back a day to Bentonville, spent the day in Bentonville together, and then drove back here. Right. And that's one of the reasons I like driving out west is because it takes a lot of time. And that's time where I'm in the same space with my adult children. Some 1, 2, or 3 of them. I was always with me when we do those trips. And I think it's really important. You have to remember who you are. Like I think about a few things I'm reflecting on in that. Like you talked about relationship starts with loving your wife. And I love that quote, like, the best gift you can give your kids is to love their mom or their dad really well. Right. Because they get to see that. So you're remembering who you are. You're a parent to these children and your actions speak so much louder than your words. Right. So to be that example and that shows up in the relationship. And I think I know I went through a similar situation and I'm not going to go into it here, but where I burned down a business and thought I was worthless because I didn't know how I was going to pay the rent. Right. In 2000, same time, right. 2010. And to have the gift of being seen as worthy just for being a child of God, just for being a husband, just for being a father, just for being a human being, and not because of what I could produce. It's incredibly powerful. So I'm wondering, Jamie, if you speak to those listening that are in a really difficult time professionally or psychologically, really depressed, what's one tool, what's one action that they could do right now? They could hit the pause button and they could take one action right now, one step that they could go do that you would say would get them on the right track. What would that be?
I think it would be to seek out somebody who has what you're looking for and talk to them about it. I could do Christianese and say pray and all that stuff, which is all very important, but sometimes it's not.
Well, you say Christianese, that's hilarious.
I mean, it's not as practical sometimes because if you don't know what to pray about, you really don't get the comfort. God's there, of course, and
but God also speaks through other people.
If you don't know how to hear Him, I mean, I'm paraphrasing the Bible, but it says if we want forgiveness, ask God; He gives it freely. But if we want healing, we confess to our fellow man. And what I've discovered, I'm pretty quick to tell people about my business failure. for a lot of reasons. Number one, probably the biggest reason is I don't want them to find out about it later.
Right. Especially if they're a client or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had bankruptcy, I'm not ashamed of it. I love that.
But that's really great that you're not, because a lot of people still would be.
Yeah.
Right. So that's really great.
It happened. Yeah. I mean, why would I be ashamed of it? It happened. And so, and we've risen above it, but I think seeking out wise counsel from somebody that has something you want.
In that area.
Yeah.
So if it's business, I mean, I remember when I was burning my business down and I couldn't decide whether to let go of it. Like I had so much ego in it and I couldn't see a way out and I didn't know whether to let go of it. And he wasn't even a really good friend, but he was someone that was an expert in turnarounds in the industry I was in. And I said, hey, can we go play golf or can we get together? He said, yeah, let's go play golf. There's this course up on Chickering. Let's go play golf. So we played, and I don't even play golf, but I went and played golf with him. And what it gave me was the courage to say enough's enough, right? He said, so many people have done it. There's no shame in getting to where you are. The shame is to continue to chase it when you know it's over. Yeah. Because your ego, right? So let it go. So that was, I agree that point is really good. Or if I needed to feel just some basic human worth and to take it to my wife instead, I didn't even take it to her. She came to me, but then like you, right? It was the secret was out, so to speak. Yeah. And then to see that I had worth in her eyes, it was like, amazing, even when I wasn't producing. Yeah. So no, I think that's super good advice, right? The opposite of addiction, which it creates all these problems, is connection. Yeah. Right. It's not sobriety; it's connection.
But to caution somebody on that, if I'm looking for business advice, I'm not going to go talk to a person that's been, a stay-at-home mom for 30 years.
No, that's right. Yeah, I went to the guy that his business was all about turnarounds and business failures and so forth, and he knew what he was talking about.
And there's nothing wrong with. I mean, my wife's been a stay-at-home mom, and I think it's a lovely career, and I think absolutely it's important, and I'm all in favor of it. But I need to get advice from somebody that's walked in the shoes that I'm trying to walk in, and so I don't. When I first started my first company, I had a couple people giving me a hard time that had ever only been employees, and like, what do you it's crazy.
Of course.
You're risking all this money and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you've never owned a company, so you don't get to give me advice. Like,
right.
I mean, you can, but I'm going to tune it out. I mean, feedback is always relevant to the relationship, but it's not always true. And
that's right.
And so listen to feedback, but don't accept it if it's not true. And so I'm pretty confident.
And you have to be careful the agenda the other person has as well.
Yeah. Sometimes
right. even with their wives
themselves.
They have their own agenda. So you have to make sure it's still good to get, but you need to make sure you can stand back and filter from their perspective.
I don't listen to advice from people that I don't want to be.
Yeah. There you go. Well said. Wow. Jamie, we've covered a lot of ground, man. And I really appreciate it. I think it's really, you've boiled some very tough lessons in life down into some very good takeaways. I mean, I love this. I mean, I love the 3 points that you have, and then this advice that to reach out to somebody. If you're really hurting, reach out to somebody who's got in that area, who's got what you want to have or has been through that before and can really give advice. But most importantly, reach out so that you're not feeling alone, right? Yeah. That's, if your wife hadn't reached out to you that morning, we may not be having this conversation right now.
Very possible.
And so it's really important to make sure we have that connection.
Yeah. Listen to the prompting. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow that when God's talking to you or whatever you want to call it, intuition or God speaking to you, whatever, follow that. Listen to that. Yeah. If people want to connect with you, Jamie, where could they reach out to you? Where can they find you if they want to talk to you some more? So
our website is Real Equity CRE for commercialrealestate.com. My email is jamie@realequitycre.com. And so I'd be happy to connect with anybody, especially if there's anybody out there that happens to listen to this that's thinking about taking their life because it's gotten a little hard. I only do that with other men, but certainly would be pleased to talk to anybody. And if you're a lady that's dealing with that, still reach out. I'll connect you with somebody that is appropriate for you to talk to. But that's a thing that I still love to do. And then just to get to know people's fine. So I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Jamie, thank you very much. Thank you for this very meaningful conversation to me and to our listeners today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Art. Talk to you soon.
I can't wait to hear what action you are taking. Connect with me on LinkedIn or our website, lifeintransition.online, and let me know. Let a friend know too. It could be a huge encouragement to them and keep you on the track. Thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and it would mean a lot to me if you left a review and shared this episode with a friend. If you want to learn more about me and what I do when I'm not podcasting, please visit me at artblanchford.com. Thank you for listening. Together, let's make the most of life in transition.